Hi everyone. This is what happened to me when I got Government Housing Part 34. And at this point, I was starting to go down a path. Everyone's path through the justice system is different. And my path was certainly very dark and it got worse. Every step I took, it got worse. So, on top of everything that had happened, and all the responsibilities that I already had, I now had to deal with being charged and with the consequences of that. I seemed to be burdened with like a new task, not just a daily task, but a task that took, months and months to resolve, all the time. And bear in mind that I was still on a pension, I had no money, all of this was pushing me into extreme poverty and putting me under extreme stress, and I'd already suffered a breakdown by this point. But anyway, it was now October 2016, and it had been over a year since a respondent first assaulted me. And I believe that if the police had charged the respondent for any of the assaults that I suffered, that the incident that I was charged for would never have occurred. In other words, I believe that police duty failure caused the incident that I was charged with, and I believe this could be proved in court if I had a competent lawyer and if I came before a reasonable judge. Regardless, I now had to look for a lawyer to represent me in court so I could get a fair hearing. I had contacted the Law Institute of Victoria to ask for referrals to lawyers because they claim to refer people to lawyers who are appropriate to their needs, and because they give you a referral for a free 30-minute consultation with a lawyer, and I couldn't afford to speak to a lawyer without that referral. So on the 17th of the 10th, 2016, I rang several lawyers to ask for an appointment, some of whom refused or weren't available or just flatly wouldn't assist me. But one of them gave me an appointment for the following day. This meant that I had to print out the referral letter and go to the law firm asking for help, which can be quite humiliating. And I mean, in my circumstances, it was for many reasons. I could only print out the referral letter because I had mobile data, a computer, a printer, paper, and printer ink. And all of these things were expenses taken out of my pension, which I couldn't really afford, but which I had to pay because I had no other choice and my situation was so bad at this point. On the 18th of the 10th, 2016, I attended a law firm in the city and I spoke to a lawyer who agreed to represent me, which was probably the first time in all of this that someone had actually agreed to assist me. But he refused to see me as a legal aid client and he said that he wanted me to pay him $1,650 to represent me in court. So I was unable to hire him. Effectively, this meant that being poor allowed the respondent to assault and harass me, and that I couldn't talk to a lawyer about why I did what I did on that day. I needed a lawyer because there was literally no one else on my side, and because of the appalling behaviour of the other lawyers and judges in court. For example, when the respondent's lawyer yelled at me until I burst into tears, and when judges failed to tell me that I needed to ask for evidence from the other side for it to be provided to me. I wanted to be protected from this behaviour because the people in the justice system didn't see any reason to listen to my evidence or treat me with respect when I was in court on my own. Later that day, I received a call from a police officer who said that she was investigating one of the complaints that I'd made, and that officer basically rang me to say that they disagreed with me and argued against my complaint. Obviously, I thought that was disrespectful, and I also thought it was biased against me and in favour of the respondent. But the other thing that got me was that the police expected to respond to a complaint with a phone call. And obviously that she expected to engage in argument with me, which was, pretty horrible and really draining. This was something that I hated dealing with and that I thought was indicative of the attitude of the police and other public servants towards everyday citizens. The ones I dealt with all seemed to want to personalise situations which should have been kept professional. They believed they could pick up the phone and respond to a complaint or make allegations about events, and I believe those things should have been dealt with in writing. The main problem with dealing with them over the phone is that there's no record of the call and you can't verify their identity. So I don't know why they're allowed to do it. That particular officer was so rude and so intent on arguing against my complaint that I had reason to complain about them as well, which caused further problems. I don't know why it's so hard to get the police and other people in the public service to do their job professionally, but a lot of problems could be avoided if they did. Clearly, if a police officer contacts you by mail or email, they should have the Victoria Police logo on their correspondence, along with their name and title. This doesn't happen in a phone call, and in fact, a lot of them become offended if you ask them for their details, which doesn't make sense. I shouldn't have been expected to argue with an officer about the complaint that I made. My complaint should have been dealt with impartially and responded to in a professional manner. By that stage, I had been assaulted by the respondent. I suffered a breakdown. I was charged by the police, yelled at by the respondent's lawyer, and I was suffering sleep deprivation because of the respondent banging on my ceiling. I also felt sick because of the chemical smells coming into my unit from the respondent's unit. The last thing I needed was to have to engage in an argument with a police officer about a complaint that I'd made, but that's what was happening. Virtually every person that I dealt with in the justice system beat me down and deflected responsibility for what was happening to me and any issues that I had put to them. They seemed to think that reports and complaints they received were personal conversation and that they could sweet talk, argue, and fraternise their way out of doing their job. I felt like I was dealing with actors rather than paid professionals. Everyone in the justice system that I asked to assist me seemed to agree that they didn't need to do their job where I was concerned. And this was despite the fact that they didn't know me personally and I didn't have a police record. They seemed to think that they did know me and were able to pass judgment on me, and I never found out why.